Good afternoon, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you very much for joining us, man. Really appreciate it. How's your gig going?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's frantic, but but hey, it's a paying gig. I'm all about it.
There you go. Good one. Shall we go?
Yeah.
I tell you what, we are a few seconds before, so I guess we'll just. Yep, it's 12 o'clock. Let's go then. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 133rd session. We used to do these things on Clubhouse. We've now moved on to LinkedIn Live Audio, and we've had so far over 260,000 people joining us. We're now doing this on LinkedIn. Margaret, if you want to come up, you'd need to raise your hand. On your right-hand side, perfect. Allowed to speak. Right. Are you audible now, Margaret? Can you hear us?
No, I can hear you. I could hear you the whole time. Yeah, thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining us. We're waiting for one more person. That's Sarah-Emily Oades. Hopefully she'll be here soon. But just, I guess, we can get started. So this is our 133rd session. We used to do them all on Clubhouse. We now do them on LinkedIn. We've had over 260,000 people join us, and now we need all the help we can get to spread the word that we're actually now on LinkedIn. Now, the idea is quite simple as to why we do this. Unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail, and the top three reasons for that are: one, market fit; two, running out of money; and three, not having the right people. And there couldn't be anything more important about your ability to thrive and survive than your ability to find and hire and keep and empower the right people and train them, perhaps, too, and anything and everything that comes with it. I've got three amazing people, experts in their own fields, in their own rights, within the startup talent sphere. And for the next 58 minutes, you can get to grill them and answer many questions you want in terms of that journey of yours to hopefully make your startup a success. Now, for those of you that are tuning in via YouTube or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor that. Therefore, you would either need to hop onto LinkedIn and search for Startup to Scale Up Club, or perhaps go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club, and there you can find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 133. If you click on join, you'll be directly here where you can raise your hand and ask any questions you want. Also, for those of you that are here, please feel free to share this with your network if you find any value in this. Now, I guess we'll do some quick introductions and then open it for questions. So my name's 𝗦𝘁𝗿. I'm an Albanian in London who used to do a lot of work with startups by embedding myself within their teams to help them hire and keep the right people. Now, I don't do as much of that. Now, I'm mainly focused on making the Startup to Scale Up Club a success, but I still do a bit of work as well as do some growth advisory. And lately, I've been helping some family offices and angels with their due diligence. And I guess we can start with the ladies, perhaps Margaret that joined first, and then Sarah-Emily, and then Jeff, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Margaret 𝗏. I have been working in the talent space for close to 20 years. I feel quite old, but I've been recruiting for tech companies of different sizes and very internationally. I've recruited for tech startups, Series A, B, C, and D, and also for large tech organizations such as VMware or Expedia. I've recruited, as I mentioned, very internationally across all different functions. I've done a lot of engineering recruitment and corporate functions recruitment. And apart from that, I do interview coaching for job seekers and interview training for hiring managers. So happy to help with anything related to interviewing, hiring, and training.
Sarah-Emily, can you hear us? There's a mic icon on your right path.
Yes, I can. Sorry, I couldn't initially, but I've switched devices, so now we're good to go.
Brilliant. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Great. I am now the Chief People Officer and SVP of Operations for a small scaling medtech company which specializes in mental health care. My background, thank you. My background is legal, and then moved into the people space about 15 years ago. Have worked with a variety of better known companies like Uber and Booking.com, but actually have really cut my teeth in the startup scale-up environment. Series, probably seed round to Series C is my happy place. I also do some coaching of execs, but right now my focus is very much on Coa Health. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, Emily, and congrats on your role, on your new role. Jeff, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, indeed. Thank you very much, Anton. Appreciate it, and great to be here with these incredible ladies as well. So my background, I'm an American living in London now for the last 20 years. I've been working primarily with fast growth tech and biotech startups, basically operating as an interim, as a consultant, as full-time, basically building out people strategies from end to end, typically post-funding to help with global expansion. But I have most recently gotten very deep into HR technology and specifically AI, the use of AI in HR tech to basically help accelerate the strategic value of the HR position, to really start to help organizations holistically understand their human populations in a much deeper, more exciting and powerful way. That ultimately is linked very, very inextricably to commercial goals and targets and direction and things of that nature. So that's the work I've been doing lately. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much to all three of you. I really appreciate you. And by the way, none of the audience and the amazing work that we've done here would have happened without your help and that of your fellow panelists. So I'm very grateful for your input and time so far. Now, I guess a quick reset of the room for those listening either via YouTube or Facebook, as well as those here on LinkedIn. This is Startup Talent Q&A. We're doing this to help founders with any questions you may have on your talent journey. That could be anything to do from where's the right place to find people, how do you decide when is the right time to hire somebody, how do you decide what sort of skills they need to have or what sort of tasks and duties they should be able to accomplish, how do you interview them, how do you assess and make sure that they actually have those skills and the experience that they claim they do, or perhaps once you've hired people, how do you build a company culture that is right for you, or maybe how do you empower and train them to do their absolute best, or maybe just simple boring stuff like admin in the sense of a contract, or maybe payroll, whatever it is within that sphere. All you have to do is raise your hand, we'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your questions. There are no right or wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. For those of you that are tuning in via Facebook or YouTube, please be aware that we're unable to monitor your comments there. So if you've got any questions, you'll need to hop onto LinkedIn and search for Startup to Scale Up Club and then join us here live, or perhaps just go directly to our site, startuptoscaleup.club, where you'll be able to click on today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 133. And there you'll be able to join us live. On the other hand, if your questions today are not on talent, please save them for the other rooms we do. Mondays, obviously, as you can see today, we do talent. But then on Tuesdays, tomorrow, it's product and tech, so helping you build that early stage. Wednesdays, it's growth, so helping you sell more. And Thursdays, it's fundraising, so helping you raise funds for your business. Therefore, save those for these other rooms. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. time here on LinkedIn Live Audio. And now, without further ado, whilst we're waiting for some questions to come in, perhaps my panelists wouldn't mind giving us your top do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hires. So perhaps we can start with Jeff, who joined first, then Margaret, then Sarah-Emily, please.
Sure. So yeah, very quickly, my do's and don'ts when you're planning people strategy. A key part of that is to understand what the business does and what market it's operating in, what its competitors are, what are the key products that you're trying to kind of bring to market. And when you start to kind of understand that framework and that context, you then can start to think about, oh, okay, this is interesting. Then what talent is going to be crucial to bring on board in what order, and what phasing, if you will, so that we can actually start to kind of pull this company together and really kind of get it launched. And so I would, as a massive do, I would definitely plug in very deeply with the finance team, with the product team, with the sales and marketing teams, and spend in operational teams if they even have those. But to kind of understand, what is it you do, for the business, and how do you look and perceive the business, and what do you think its top priorities are or ought to be, and basically then start to back into all of that, what the people requirements are, and again, this doesn't all sit on your shoulders alone. Start to share your thoughts. Create an open dialogue around this so that you ultimately get to the right answer. Because in the end of the day, we are here basically to service the success and acceleration of this business. So that would be my big fat do. I guess my big fat don't is operate in isolation, worry only about administration, compliance, and governance. Those base elements are important, absolutely. But again, you can outsource a lot of that, and you can use AI for a lot of that. You can engage with companies like Kroner or Peninsula, to get all the HR legal stuff sorted out, and work with finance to get payroll and things like that sorted. So think bigger. Think of yourselves as consultants, and basically take a broad spectrum approach to understanding all that. Sorry, it was very long-winded, but there you go.
No, don't worry. Thank you very much for that, Jeff. And by the way, you probably have realized by now that whenever people name drop anything, I am quite keen on you putting them in the comments in the in the event. So if you click three dots top of your screen, that it says view event details, and then you can comment anything you want. So perhaps some of those platforms, maybe, if you don't mind, because the founders here would probably find them useful. And the beauty of it is that they actually stay even after the event has ended. So now we'll go on to Margaret. What are your top do's and don'ts, Margaret, in terms of early stage hiring?
Sure. So one of the do's, I would say that so in the early days, the way you market your product and the way you think about the problems you're solving says a lot about the kind of company that you're about to build, So you speak into two audiences. You speak into talent, but you also speak into customers. So if you become known for doing interesting things for your customers, you will attract talented and ambitious people, because smart people want to solve interesting problems, and they're not looking for a job, they're looking for a mission. They want to work with other smart people. So in the beginning, your presence in communities, your reputation, your contribution and ideas, they represent you. So use, whether it's blogging or social media or any kind of events, public conversations, to keep speaking to your ideal future hires. And also kind of like, signpost your involvement in events and your own content to make it easy for people to find what you stand for and what you matter. I would also say my second would be very clear about what is it that you're looking for. A lot of the time, the hiring managers don't actually have a clear understanding of what is that they need. They have a vague idea of what they need, but then they waste weeks interviewing people just to realize, that the requirements have changed. So before you even open a position, get very clear about what is it that you need this person to do. What would you want them to accomplish within the first few months? What would you want them to accomplish within the first 3 months? What would you want them to accomplish within the first 6 months? So just be very clear on what is it exactly that you need. And my third do will be just to always be hiring. You want to develop a hiring process. So in the beginning in any startup, most of the hires come from friends of friends or ex-colleagues. It's about networks for one simple reason, that good people know good people. So part of being a good CEO is building a great network with quality and reach, and the better your network is, the easier your next hire is going to be. So it's not obviously about just having thousands of connections on LinkedIn, but you want to be working hard enough to be kind of visible where in the community where the talent pool is, so like as an example, if your tech is built with Ruby, are you taking part in the relevant meetups and hackathons? And in terms of don'ts, I would just say don't make the process too complicated. On one hand, of course, you want to have a proper interview process to assess if a person is a good fit for your position, but at the same time, like, don't have just too much bureaucracy. Don't have a 7-stage interview process just because you want everyone, to like this person. Like, it really shouldn't take more than 3 to 4 interviews to decide if the candidate is the right fit for you. And I have seen situations with like 8 to 10 interviews, which is completely ridiculous. So, so that would be my big don't.
Thanks a lot, Margaret. Sarah-Emily?
Yeah, Margaret's last point really resonates, actually. I completely agree. But to kind of build on both of those points, I would say in my do's category, I would have defining your culture early on and defining kind of how you want to operate and what you stand for. So this is everything around your mission. And I think a lot of people forget to do this until they have more people, and then they have to kind of retroactivate it with people that have joined earlier on. So be really clear from day one what you stand for, because it will also help you eliminate, not hiring the wrong person, I suppose is the best way to put it. I would also say when it comes to your hiring process itself, yes, I agree that you don't need, 10, 15 steps. But I also think sometimes you can over-index, and you can over-index on speed, which then means that you will forego fit. So just make sure that I don't think about the number of steps. I think it's more about the quality of the steps that you have in your process. So that's something else that I would probably mention for your do's. And I think generally, especially again in the earlier stages, you want to hire smart people, and the reason you hire them is because they're smart and they either know or they can figure out what they're doing. And so just ensuring that you have this kind of balance of autonomy and of course accountability, which is the other side of that coin, within the team, and you foster that from very early on, because your first few hires are key really to getting everything off the ground. And so if you can't kind of switch on this level of autonomy that they need to get it done, then it's really hard for you and them to be successful. Moving over to the don'ts, I would say the biggest piece I've seen on hiring, but also the wider people strategy, is quantity over quality. That's my biggest don't. I think it's better to focus on being lean but really high quality than just hiring in as many people as possible. Because frankly, what goes up must come down. And I've seen this with every single startup that I've worked with. They have overinflated their headcount numbers. They haven't thought about it carefully enough. And so then they've over-indexed on quantity. And then I think for my final point, I would bring in, especially once you have a couple of people, is thinking about how you recognize people and their contributions and that kind of pieces. And I think sometimes this gets lost because we all have a goal in mind and we want to get there. And some people over-focus on things like legal and compliance, which again, to Jeff's point, is something that's very easy to make sure that you have covered, but really making sure that you're then providing this kind of the right workflow. So don't skimp on your recognition and feedback for your employees.
Wow, this is some brilliant stuff from all three of you. I really appreciate that. Right, you. We are now 18 minutes past 12, which means we've only got 42 minutes to go. If you're a founder in the room and you've got any questions on your startup talent journey, whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, how to interview them, how to assess them, how to hire them, what to pay them, how to do a job spec, whatever it is within that sphere, all you have to do is raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. If your questions, however, today are not on talent, please save them for the other rooms. We do, so to give an idea, we run 4 per week. Mondays, as you can see today, it's talent. Tomorrow, Tuesdays, it's product and tech. Wednesdays, growth, and Thursdays, fundraising. And they're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And by the way, you can go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club, and RSVP to all future events between now and the 19th of December. On the other hand, for those of you that are listening via YouTube or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we cannot monitor your comments there now. Therefore, you would need to join us here on LinkedIn live audio in order to ask any questions you may have. You can either just hop onto LinkedIn and search for Startup to Scale Up Club, or just go to our website and find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 133. And now, without further ado, whilst we're waiting for some people to hopefully ask some questions live, we'll go on to some questions that were sent in to us. Hopefully, I haven't read this before, but this is from an agri-tech startup, and they're focused on data analytics for farmers. They're based in Norfolk. They're planning to also have a base in London. At the moment, they're at seed stage, and the founder, he used to be an agricultural researcher for a big institution, and he says, the problem I'm having is hiring tech talent in a rural area. How could I recruit software engineers to a rural-based agri-tech company, especially when they all seem
Sorry, gang, is it just me, or have we lost Anton?
No, I can't hear him either. I assumed it was just me.
I think we lost him.
Oh, yeah, there he goes. He's out. He'll come back in a sec. Oh. Joys of technology.
I think I need an engineer to help me with this bleeding thing to start with. Did I finish my question? Did you hear it?
No,
You started.
I'm really sorry. Okay.
No, it's all right.
So I'll go through it again. Agri-tech startup focused on data analytics for farmers. He's based in Norfolk, planning to also have a base in London. They're at seed stage. He comes from an agricultural research background, used to work for a big institution. The problem he's having, and then he goes on to explain, hiring tech talent in a rural area. My question is, how do I recruit software engineers to a rural-based agri-tech company, especially when they all seem to want to work in London or other big tech hubs? And then he goes on to say, God forbid if I needed a hard tech person to come with me to those farmers and show them how our stuff works. So I guess let's start with Sarah, Emily, then Jeff, then Margaret.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So there's a few different ways around this. So one, you either try and match the requirements that you currently have by diversifying where you look for your talent. There is a lot of rural talent available. You just have to know where to look for it. And so there's different networks within which you can engage to try and draw those out. But honestly, my preference would be to actually switch up the requirements a little bit. So if you have the opportunity to hire outside of your current more rural location and offer travel on site whenever needed, then I think that would secure you, one, someone that can work with you longer term, and two, someone that would probably be much more engaged. The other piece that you could look at, and again, being unaware of other factors like the current scale, or if a part-time or full-time or something like that would be necessary, but you could also look at in a potentially more remote area, you could look at either a part-time or a job share, which for us has proven actually really helpful. We have some very specific requirements within COA, given the type of technology that we cover. And so that might be something that is worth trying. But I think if possible, I would look at something fully remote, which then gives you the flexibility of talent. And it doesn't then necessarily have to be in the UK either. And then you can dictate sort of what the working hours could be. So that's the other piece, is if you are fully remote open, there are lots of networks outside of the UK where you could find talent that would be readily available and could be flexible with your time zone. So, and I don't want to drop any particular names, but there are a few networks that we work with. And so if anyone was interested in following up on those, then I would be happy to to give specifics about which networks we've used in the past.
Thank you very much, Sarah-Emily. And if you wish, Sarah-Emily, you can actually mention whatever networks you want in the comments of the session. So for that, you would need to click on the 3 dots on top of your screen, and then it says view event details. And when you click on that, the comments section comes up. Right, you. I think I said first Sarah-Emily, then Jeff, didn't I? Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Yep. Exactly. Now, to stand on the shoulders of Sarah-Emily's thinking, you're absolutely right. I think I picked up in the phrasing of the question, Anton, that this individual potentially was looking to have people on site, literally going to farms potentially to demonstrate the software or the capability or the hardware.
I think so, but it does seem that his current sort of main worry, if you want to call it a worry, is or challenge rather, because the worry is the people on site. The challenge at the moment, it seems, it's to start with, it's software people, which Sarah-Emily was absolutely right. They can be based anywhere in the world, but yeah. Yes, you're right. Those people on site, that's a different story.
Yeah, no, I think, well, and she's absolutely spot on about that. I mean, look, I work with an online gaming company at the moment, and they employ a fully remote setup because they need access to as many incredible game designers and animators and so forth and audio folks as they can possibly get their hands on. And they operate, well, I should say, people who support them, contractors and full-time, operate in as many as 30 plus countries at the moment. And so Eastern or Western Europe is just the beginning. And then it goes all the way through, former Soviet, kind of, countries and all sorts of different places. So, and it works, right? I mean, basically they make it work because we live on Zoom and Google Meets. We use Google Suite. So we're able to share information across all the time. And you just have to kind of like make sure you have the right kind of communication tools in place. You have the right cultural and desired behaviors outlined, so everybody's very clear in terms of what the day in and day out operations and behaviors need to be in order to make this work. You need good, strong managers who are not micromanagers or nano managers, but in fact are folks can go to coach, guide, counsel, direct these individuals and orchestrate basically what might feel like a slightly unusual and strange scenario with having remote workers all over the place. But if you have a regular cadence of engaging with people via Zoom or Google Meets or whatever tool you're using, and use tools like Slack, for kind of instantaneous messaging and information sharing and stuff, it really starts to feel pretty natural, as you kind of go along and get more and more used to it. If you need people on site, the way I would kind of parse this out is look at the types of roles that you're looking to hire. If it's purely software development, you don't need those people on site. You absolutely can hire those folks remotely and kind of manage them from that perspective. Just manage them well. If you then need people who can do demonstrations of hardware/software and actually show up on farms and things of that nature, that's a different kind of hire. And you probably don't need loads of them. You probably need 1 or 2 initially who can basically be available. So that's a much easier problem to solve. But I would definitely go hunting in places like Stack Overflow and all the different sites and GitHub and so these places basically where these software developers hang out in the analytics space and start kind of inquiring from there. But anyway, I'll let Margaret speak to the more specific stuff. But those are my thoughts.
Here, thanks, Jeff. Yes, Mark.
No, I actually agree with what Jeff said. If these are software developers, they absolutely do not need to be on site. They probably would not want to be on site. I'm talking to, so at Mixmax, we only hire remote employees, and most engineers talk to me because the company is, they wanted to go back to the office 2-3 days a week. So yeah, if it is a software engineer role, just really don't try to make them come to the office. You will probably not find the best people that way. And I'm not sure why this person is not considered considering hiring remotely, because if it's a software developer, there's just really no need to be on the site. But I think as a general advice to attract talent, you would want to highlight the mission and impact. So engineers, they often want to work on projects that make a difference. So if you can perhaps like share your vision and how your work will contribute to sustainable farming or food security or rural development, whatever it is, then that could be something that would interest them in the position. I definitely would encourage this person to offer remote or hybrid work options if possible, because many, if not most, engineers prefer the flexibility to work from home or the location of their choice. So highlighting this can make the position a lot more attractive. I would also maybe, I don't know how experienced this engineer needs to be, but I would network in some relevant communities. So are there any local universities? Are there any local tech hubs? Are there agricultural innovation centers that you can tap into network of young engineers? So that will be something to look at. Potentially there are some local tech meetups or agricultural conferences where you can connect with potential candidates. And I'm in general a not fan of job boards, because I never got good candidates from job boards for engineering roles, but I would maybe look at some platforms that cater specifically to tech talent in agriculture or startups. I don't know what they are, but there has to be something. There's website for everything these days. But otherwise, I would just look at a general tech job boards like Stack Overflow, Stack Overflow jobs potentially. So yeah, and finally, you always want to highlight potential career growth opportunities. Engineers do want to learn new skills and advance their career. So if you can outline how they can develop their expertise in your sector, that could help as well.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Thank you to all three of you. I have an ex-boss of mine, Scandinavian, who went to the country somewhere in Suffolk, if I remember correctly, and bought this huge, big-ass barn, turned it into a family home for himself, into an office, and then eventually into some rooms and even sort of family kind of self-contained little flats for his business. And the way he did things was basically trying to appeal to young families who wanted to live and bring up their children, especially at that young age before they go to nursery or school, in a rural setting. He even went as far as hiring 2 nannies, which wasn't very easy. In the end, he actually had to resort to bringing them from overseas to live in the barn with everybody else, and it became like a bit of a crazy community. The point I'm trying to make with this is that there's something for everyone, and there's always ways to appeal to people. Yes, you are right, but to be honest with you, you'd be finding a challenge even to recruit people in London. Why? Because one, talent is scarce. Number two, it's another thing to go and risk a cushy job with a established company, or perhaps an established startup where they've got shares and all sorts that need to be vested, and then coming to work for somebody at such an early stage as you are. So try not to use them as barriers, but try to use them as opportunities for you to be creative. In terms of that second part that you mentioned, the hard tech, you don't need somebody to even be based in your office in Norfolk. What you can do is, because I guarantee you, at the beginning, you're not going to be doing this all day, every day. So at the beginning, you can have somebody that is based in one of the cities not far from where you are, or even London for that matter, and they only come to certain meetings to start with. And hopefully you'll get busy enough to need somebody every day, but that's another problem you can deal with. Start tackling these things one step or one challenge at a time. Again, I don't want to repeat what my brilliant panelists said, but just focus on that, appealing to the right people. And in terms of the meetups and the events you can go to, they can be an absolute lifesaver. So try to target some specific events that are related to agri-tech and so on. And there's quite a few out there today. So just focus on those. And last but not least, good old LinkedIn. If you are not able to do this yourself, find somebody, even if it's a student who's studying some kind of HR degree, find somebody to do the initial outreach on LinkedIn and GitHub and Stack Overflow to reach out to people initially, because you can actually go quite far. Right here, we now have 26 minutes to go. This is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 133rd session. If you're finding any value in this, please feel free to share it with your network. You'll be adding value to them, but also gaining exposure for your business. On the other hand, see, we've had over 260,000 people join us, and none of that would have happened without people like Sarah-Emily, Margaret, and Jeff. So please feel free to show your love for them and to them, and follow them and reach out here on LinkedIn. We're now on LinkedIn Live Audio because we've moved from Clubhouse, so we need all the help we can get in terms of sharing this. Now, if your questions today, by the way, are not on talent, please save them for the other rooms we do. So to give you an idea, we run 4 per week: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, and Thursdays fundraising. Also, if you're listening in via YouTube or Facebook, unfortunately, we're unable to monitor your questions there now. Therefore, you would need to hop onto LinkedIn and search for Startup to Scale Up Club, and then click on this event and join us live now. But without further ado, Neil, please introduce yourself and fire away with whatever questions you have for us.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much. It's been a very helpful session so far. So I'm at the beginning of my founder journey. I've been involved in various different startups and as an advisor to them before. One of the key questions that I have is related to this kind of lean organizational setup. You know, bits of talent I'm looking to contract in the way that everyone's described from communities, but I'm also got one eye on kind of what's the core team that I'm building. How much of that is technical skills? How much of that is technical skills I don't possess or should be outsourced? And I guess this links to funding conversations. What's the kind of best lean version of an organization that can be established? What's that balance between kind of technical knowledge, founder drive, and kind of hard skills that are required to do the work? And what do you feel is the most secure version of that? Because I'm aware of, you know, pay issues. I don't want to create a lot of dead equity. You know, I don't want to dilute the process too much, you know, have a complicated set of offboarding of people. But what's the kind of minimum viable organization that you'd kind of recommend in terms of that balance?
That's a very good question, Neil, although it's quite generic. I'll give you my quick 2 pence and then pass you on to my experts here. In my experience, to give you an idea, I have been a founder or co-founder of many, many companies, and unfortunately, the absolute majority of them have been spectacular, monumental failures. A couple of them didn't do too bad. One of them made, on top of not being able to get sort of access to the right advice at the right time that I could afford. The second main problem for me, and I found this has been for many others, is again, people and co-founders. I often say this, and it may sound cheesy, but finding the right co-founder can be just as hard, if not harder, than finding a life partner. So, in my experience, there are 2 core co-founding domain ownerships any and every good company, startup needs to have. That's technical and commercial. If you have those 2, you're on the right track. In terms of other domain ownerships, I would say about 5 good to have if you can. So you start with the founder, then commercial, then technical, then operational, and then 5 finance, and 6 HR. So these 6, in my experience, are good things, good domain ownership to have. In terms of how to go about it and having it lean, personally, it depends what you work. So that's when we then need details about what kind of business you have in mind and so on. But I am a fan of, if you can go out there and outsource it, absolutely go for it. The only thing to bear in mind is that if you have some really sort of top-notch IP, i.e., you've discovered a cure for cancer, or perhaps you've discovered some better way to send people to space and God knows what else, and that's a different story because investors would want you to have that domain ownership in house. But in general, I would be, and I've seen this work better, that just have anything as much as you possibly can out there. Obviously, if you do it in house, it may be cheaper, but again, it depends how. Because you're saying you don't want to dilute your shares, you don't have the money to pay people, and so on. So it's about finding the path of least resistance, Neil. That's my view. But I'd love to hear from the others. So maybe this time we'll start with Margaret, Jeff, and then Sarah-Emily, please.
Sure. One second. I had to just unmute myself. Yeah, it's kind of how to know without really understanding what the business is. But I think in terms of finding the right balance between hiring technical and non-technical staff, I think it's really important to understand your business needs, like what's the core function of your startup. If you are a tech-driven company, like if you're a software startup, obviously you will need a stronger technical team. If your focus is on customer service or market entry, then you will prioritize non-technical roles, and you probably won't need an engineer, for a while. So the typical roles, obviously software, like technical roles, right? Software engineers, product developers, IT support. So you will potentially need these people if you build and maintain product or service. But if you're hiring more non-technical people, then obviously people like, sales reps and customer support and marketing specialists, because these roles will help driving customer retention and acquisition and retention, managing operations and building a company culture. So I mean, in terms of the split, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe 50-50, but it really will depend on the industry. Like for a tech startup, I guess it's going to be like, in fact, it would definitely be more like 60-70% of technical stuff initially, especially if your product is heavily tech based. But I think, that concept of the minimum viable organization, like that will be the smallest team structure that can effectively deliver your product or service while obviously supporting essential business functions. So I think that core team would be a technical lead, well, obviously the CEO as well, but a technical lead, someone who can oversee product development and make those critical tech decisions. You will probably need a product manager who can bridge the gap between technical and non-technical teams, ensuring that product features align with market needs. You're probably going to need someone like, a marketing or a sales lead or both. That's typically will not be the same person, but that person will be responsible for go-to-market strategies, customer acquisition, and also building brand awareness. And you will need someone in operations and support, someone who will focus on customer support or any kind of administrative tasks. So to keep the team as lean as possible, you would like each team member should wear multiple hats and contribute to various aspects of the business. And when I work for some smaller startups, people kind of, did almost a few positions, and you want to focus on, when you're hiring, you want to focus on cross-functional skills. So for example, a technical lead might also handle some customer feedback or marketing tasks. But I guess you just want to start with a small agile team that can rapidly iterate on product development based on user feedback. And then as the startup grows, you would expand the team based on specific needs and market demands. But that's quite generic, right? Based on, I don't know what the business does exactly.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Margaret. Jeff?
Margaret must have just read my mind. I think she's absolutely spot on about this. I mean, you just kind of take a look at sort of the business life cycle in terms of starting something new, inventing something new, and bringing it to the world. You always ever have to start with, well, what is it you need to bring to the world, and what is the big fat why? And very quickly, you kind of like obviously focus on product. What is it that you have spied in the market that is either a blue ocean opportunity, i.e. nobody's been there before, or nobody's thought about a particular area before in the way that you're thinking about it, or maybe it is a red ocean, kind of opportunity where there's a lot of competition, but you've just basically thought of a new and leaner and more fascinating way of doing it, utilizing AI as an example, and you want to kind of quickly bring it to market. But you have to kind of develop the product first before you can then start to attract the other functions around that product to really kind of make it come to life. And to Margaret's point, not just a regular marketing person, but a strategic marketing person with expertise in bringing new products to market is very quickly, sort of your second critical hire. And the product, I would argue, the technical / product person is probably going to be a co-founder type character, I would imagine, in the way I typically see it. But yeah, a strategic marketing person to really understand, who does this already, what has the history been of products like this in any way, shape, or form in the past, and where have they failed, where have they succeeded, and why are we different? That's, I think, a real critical area. I would also then take a look at, kind of, and it's always ever a bit of a toss-up because it really depends on the product you're talking about. Operations is at this stage a very wide-ranging, kind of role, and it's literally everything from any kind of office operational stuff through to HR, to legal, to the way in which kind of communications, decision making, and things of that nature get done, and optimizing for that is kind of the way I would look at that. And I think, frankly, finance and HR and legal and so forth are really going to be, in terms of bringing it in-house as part of a minimum viable organization, I think you need to be further down the road before you start hiring those things in-house. And I would strongly consider engaging with fractional professionals in this space who are expert in startup world, who have a track record of success, and basically have been there, done that, and know all the pitfalls and all the foibles and all the challenges along the way. So hopefully they can help you avoid those things, and move quickly to successful, market engagement. And it's only really after then you start to land some customers, early days, where you then have to start thinking about, great, how am I going to support those customers? How am I going to, make sure that there's a strong connection to their day in and day out experience with us? It's almost as a needs must, kind of approach, where the need has to be there and actually has to be painful for you in order to consider bringing that in-house and paying for that. Otherwise, use fractional, highly flexible fractional support, on a 1, 2, maybe 3 day a week basis, to kind of get you over the hump initially, and then kind of like build it from there, would be my thinking.
Here. Thank you very much to both of you. And Sarah-Emily, unfortunately, is having some trouble with her connection, but she did hear the question, and she said, obviously, depending on what the business is, she says, my answer is co-founder, then growth, then product, then tech, and then design. And like Jeff, she also said that HR can be outsourced or go fractional. So in a nutshell, basically, it's a very similar answer from most of us, Neil. But to start with, I would definitely suggest to go for at least one co-founder that complements you in most ways, i.e. that has the skills and the experience you lack, that is needed to take whatever you have now to the next stage. I hope that helps, Neil.
That was great. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm at a kind of research and analysis phase. I have a sales background myself, so I'm pretty confident going out doing that. I have a set of kind of likely clients, but I am at this stage of thinking about who do I get on board now and what are the profile of them. So that has been very helpful because I've been running around that kind of wheel of choices a little bit in my head. So thank you very much to all of the speakers.
Then you are in a very good position now. All you need to do, I'm guessing, is some somebody with technical knowledge, not knowing what your business is, but I mean technical knowledge or experience in that field, whether that means an engineer or just somebody who knows the technical side of that business.
Exactly, and I think also because part of my sort of objective, or the building the proof of concept, I guess, is a research aspect as well. So kind of aligning with partnerships with universities, again, aware that they're very voracious in terms of IP. So trying to look at who are the different technical experts I may bring in. And again, I've been thinking about that in a fractional way. So this is very helpful to have that confirmed.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. Would love to hear on your progress, Neil. So please do feel free to join us again, either here or any of the other rooms. And that's just a reminder for you and the others here. We run 4 conversations per week: Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, and Thursday's fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any future Q&As between now and the 19th of December, which is our last Q&A for this year, if you go to startuptoscaleup.club. Now, for those of you listening via YouTube or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your comments and questions there. So for the next 10 minutes, if you've got any questions for us, you'd need to hop onto LinkedIn and just search for Startup to Scale Up Club, or perhaps just go to our site, startuptoscaleup.club, and look for today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 133. Now, we've got 10 minutes to go, so we'll go through some more questions. Green energy startup focused on solar panel installations. Based in Cardiff, they're a couple, Series B at the moment. The background is, one is an environmental scientist and the other one is a project manager. So the problem they're having is retaining skilled labor in a high demand industry. How do we create a talent retention strategy for solar engineers when the entire industry is poaching for the same people? The engineers we have are mainly to do with installations and repair, so this isn't some serious high tech. I hope that is a sort of succinct question. Shall we start with Jeff and then Margaret?
Yeah, these questions are always a little bit tough to not understand necessarily the complete context. But having said that, I mean, it sounds to me like you're trying to hire highly competitive talent in a space that's seemingly flooded with competitors. And so I think it really, in my view anyway, comes down to why is it your employment experience, and not product experience, but product is important too, because if you're differentiating yourselves, excuse me, in the market, and in such a way that says our stuff is different and better than other companies, that in and of itself is going to attract people who are not wanting the same old, and wanting to kind of test their own intellectual capabilities and experience in a new market. But I think the employer value proposition, if you will, what is it you are offering people that is going to be different and better, hopefully, than what other people are offering without breaking the bank? I think you need to look at clever new ways to do that. So one thought, I mean, just kind of quickly going down the sort of top 5 reasons that engineering type folks or technical people join organizations. It starts off with doing new, cool, leading edge work. That's a big part of it. The other part of it is working alongside people who are egoless in terms of peers, who are supportive and engaging and not competitive with one another. Also working alongside coaching managers, people who are not micromanagers, but in fact people who are folks who can coach, guide, counsel you to kind of become better over the course of time. Also working with inspirational leaders who never lose sight of the big thing that they're looking to deliver to humanity, right? I mean, literally being that kind of bold about it, and saying this is the future that we're trying to drive. and deliver to, which is, presumably a carbon-free, sun-driven, kind of energy source going forward, and kind of maintaining that strong, lofty sense of collective purpose, which is bigger than everybody in the organization, that people can attach to, almost like a religion in a way. All of those reasons, I think, are really good reasons, but then make sure too that you do things like offer at least competitive pay, and think of unusual and creative benefits. There's a great company out there called Thanks Ben, which I'll put in the comments, that basically offers a very unique approach to multifaceted benefits that are highly affordable to smaller companies, and offer a really unique and varied approach to, kind of lifestyle, kind of benefits and discounts on all sorts of different types of things that kind of make you not just a better engineer from a training and development perspective, but also a better person. And things also that kind of reach out to families and say, beyond you, who else can we look to take care of? Things like that. I think in combination with the cool work, the great peers and folks, managers, leaders, higher sense of purpose, typically will attract, people toward you who want to learn more about you. And then it's really, frankly, down to you to sell that vision for them and to really kind of help them understand what it would be like to work with you versus what it's like working with other competitors in that space, would be my thoughts.
Thank you very much for that, Jeff. Margaret, any thoughts on this?
I mean, Jeff gave an amazing answer. I'm not sure I have much to add here, but maybe just one. So absolutely, I agree just about like the purpose, and engineers want to work on something that they find interesting. And I imagine that engineers in the renewable energy fields, they will be driven by the sense of purpose, right? So you might just want to like emphasize the impact of the work. But in terms of the salary, I mean, it would be a core motivator for loads of other people. But I'm also wondering, like, can you potentially provide some bonuses for project milestones? Can you provide some benefits like flexible work arrangements or any kind of health and wellness benefits? So yeah. But I think a salary, because my sister's husband works in that field, and yeah, they least just move for the salary typically. But also, if they're not treated well, he actually changed some jobs because they kind of promised them one thing and then nothing happens later. So I think just making sure that you keep promises, making sure you pay the massive promise. I think that in itself will having that kind of good reputation in the industry will definitely help you as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much to you as well, Margaret. I'm not even going to attempt here. Have we got time for one more question that was sent in to us, or shall we wrap it up? Margaret,
I have a call in 3 minutes, so it depends how long it takes.
Don't worry, Margaret. Please give us your parting words.
Well, no, thank you so much, everyone, for attending and for questions that came in. It's actually a shame we didn't have more live questions, but the ones we've had were good. So yeah, thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you, Anton, for hosting, and look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And Margaret, I've sent you a message about switching you. Whenever you get a chance, if you can let me know, please, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure, I haven't had the chance to look at any messages.
Okay.
I've been back to the calls, yeah.
Don't worry. Thanks a lot. Jeff, what are your parting words for today?
Yeah, parting words are, again, look, it's a very, very exciting space, especially in the realm of tech, to get involved in. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have to come up with a completely new reinvention of the wheel over and over again when you think about talent, because this ultimately comes down to core basic human psychology. Basically, if I'm going to make a move, if I'm going to be attracted to your sense of purpose and the thing that you're trying to kind of bring to the universe, what attracts people to that space? And at the end of the day, it is always ever, as it is again with religious, kind of groups and things of that nature. It's a shared sense of purpose and vision, in terms of wanting to have an impact, not just across hundreds of people, but I'm talking millions or billions of people. And so I would spend a lot of time, kind of thinking through what that vision statement is, and then also kind of thinking through then what kinds of people, in terms of the way they think philosophically, the way they want to kind of kind of bring magic to the world. What is going to sort of attract them to your endeavor in a way that is going to have them not just thinking about salary, but actually thinking about a connection to something that's bigger than me, that's going to really enrich my experience as much as I'm going to be able to enrich other people's experience. So I know it sounds woolly, I know it sounds a bit fluffy, but at the end of the day, that's the stuff that really kind of pulls brilliant people toward you. And if you can create that light and that level of attraction, you would be astounded at the types of people who will want to reach out and at least have a chat with you about it. And wonderful things kind of come from those conversations. So that would be my advice to you.
So in the words of Rita, Aura, and Jeff, shine your light. Well, thank you very much for that, Jeff. We are now 1 minute to go before we reach the end of the line. I thank you all for joining us. Those of you that tuned in via YouTube and Facebook, those of you that found any value in this, whether it's here or YouTube or Facebook, please feel free to share it with your network. One, you'll be adding value to them, but also exposing your business or startup or your profile to others, basically. Thank you, especially to Jeff, Margaret, and Sarah-Emily for the time and the great input. Those of you that came up for questions like Neil, and also those that sent in questions, although we're not huge fans of them because it's hard when we don't have context and the ability to ask follow-up questions. But nevertheless, thank you again. Just a reminder, we run 4 regular rooms per week: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, and Thursdays fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and I've posted a link of the recording, which is via YouTube here in comments on this session here on LinkedIn. So if anybody missed the initial stages or wants to share that with others, please feel free to do so. And just remember, we run 4 regular rooms per week: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, and Thursdays fundraising, all from 12 to 1 p.m. And my parting words are that, remember, the starter journey can be both challenging but also quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, hopefully see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech at 12 o'clock UK time. And God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.